Hey neighbor, hope you're doing well. We're talking about seeds starting today because that's that time of the year. I see a lot of people starting their seeds out there, so we want to cover some of the basics here, and we're going to be talking about specifically germination and how to use heat mats today. Welcome to the Row by Row Gardening Show, the best dadgum gardening show on the internet, where we talk about gardening, a little bit of cooking, and growing your own food. Now sit back and enjoy. But first, let's talk about what's going on in the garden, because our garden, although it's been cold, we are rocking our winter garden. You and I both.
I haven't had anything get hurt by the freeze.
I have not either, and
I haven't covered the first thing, and we've got down in the upper 20s.
We've gotten into the low 20s,
Oh,
around
really?
24. Yeah, we've had some hard frost, and my English peas have even fared well.
Yeah.
So I've not covered anything either. Everything is just good. All the greens have that sweet flavor to them.
The onions are looking good.
They are. And speaking of onions, I had a conversation yesterday with the guy we partner with to grow our onion plants, and he grows a lot of onions. He's a commercial onion grower, has been most of his life, and we had a grower talk yesterday. You know how growers like to talk for a long time. And he brought up something that was really interesting to me. You know, I said, my onions don't look like they're growing much. He said, Greg, he said, the tops may not be growing much, but he said, take your little shovel and dig down in there. Those roots are growing. And one thing that you have to be really aware of right now, even in cold weather, is keep those onions fertilized well.
I need to do that.
Because right now you're working on that root development. You look at them in this cold weather and you say, just ain't growing. And they're not growing that much at top, but they are growing some substantial roots. And right now is when we're trying to grow that. He says, as soon as it warms up some, what you're going to see is you're going to see that top growth. Because we got the root growth right now in this cold weather. Warm up a few days, we're going to get that top growth. Then it's going to switch back and we're going to start building that bulb out. So it's so important right now to keep them fed well, even though it looks like they're not doing anything. And he said you would really, and I'm going to do it probably this afternoon, I'm going to dig one of mine up just to look at the root system. Mm-hmm. He said you'd be surprised at what roots they're putting on in this cold weather. So
That's
I
interesting.
thought that was, that's something we're easy to overlook. When it's cold outside, we don't want to go out there and do a whole lot, but we've got to keep those onions fed. Mm-hmm. And one thing I made this year that I don't always make is I made a pretty good dadgum crop of Brussel sprouts.
Pretty good, dadgum.
Dadgum crop, yeah. And these things here I love, but they test me. But I didn't have that big of a time this year. I planted these in the Lazy Garden kit with the fabric on there, with the drip on them.
So
They
the
did great.
different, so like that one's not wound up tight. Is it on the verge of being too?
That's a good question. I would say it's getting ready to get wound up.
No, I think it's opened up.
Do you think it's the other way around?
Yeah, I think it's opened
Now
up.
that one there is hard. It's like miniature cabbage if nobody's ever grown Brussels sprouts.
So I cooked you some up. First Brussels sprouts of the season, right there. That's just like a meal.
It is, and it's our favorite way of eating them. You roast them.
Well, actually, I put them on top of the stove in some bacon grease. You could use olive oil, and I half them and fry them. Then I stick them under the broiler for just a few minutes and let them get a little toasty.
It's one of those things. I had this conversation the other day. They said they didn't like, some folks we knew said they didn't like Brussels sprouts. I said, you never eat homegrown Brussels sprouts. Now, I'm the first to tell you I don't like them out of the store, okay? Canned Brussels sprouts is one of the nastiest things to me ever. But if you've ever eaten them fresh out of the garden, roasted like Mama Hoss just described, man, you're missing out on something. That's one of my favorite things to eat this time of the year. Get a little crunchy to them.
Yeah, there's some crunchy down here on the end. I got a little too. But I
It
like
ranks
that
up there
crunch.
with me with English peas. And what else that we get really good out of the garden? So English peas is one of the main things I don't like out of a can. I love out of the garden. Brussels sprouts, I can't think of what
I don't
it is.
like it either right now.
Wow. All right, so we're going to be talking about seed starting today. Now, one of the main things I have seen so far is everybody is juiced up about the spring because we've been locked up in these cold houses for so long, and they're getting the plant started a little too early. We had an email earlier today where somebody had already started their roselle.
Really?
Yes.
Now, if you were down in zone 10, it might be all right.
This person was in zone 9 and already started their roselles too early, folks. Most people start their plants too early, and what happens is you have to hold them back. And when you start holding a plant back,
Stun it.
it loses its vigor, and that's a problem. All right. Now this is for me, okay? Now for your things like broccoli, cabbage, all this Brussel sprouts, all these cold weather crops, now's the time to plant them for a spring planting for us. It's the ideal time right now to get them started. However, my warm season crops, such as my tomatoes and my peppers, my watermelons and all that stuff, specifically tomatoes, it's not time to start them because you're going to get those too big. We had a conversation the other night about stepping them up and all that. I'm not a big fan of stepping them up. I think it's a waste of time and money and effort.
Stepping up what?
When you take a plant that's grown out like this right here in a little seed tray, let me get this out of here, and they get fully grown, and then you don't have nowhere to put them, you step them up in something like a solo cup, a lot of people talking about. To me, that's just adding to your problems there. Now, I've stepped stuff up before when I got in a tight. Say we had a cold spell come in, or we had a bunch of rain come in and I couldn't get something out in the garden when it needed to go. I have been guilty of stepping up. But if you plan out well, you don't need to step these up. You need to go directly for something like this right here into the garden. Now these tomatoes right here, this is an experiment that Evan and I are doing. Evan is our younger horticulturalist that's working with us some. And Evan germinated these on a heat mat.
Okay.
But he left them out in the dark a little too long. And he come back there and he got me. He said, Mr. Craig, I want you to look at something other. I said, Evan, just as soon as you see that green there, you got to get them underneath light. They had to come up a little bit. They had snuck by him. And so we got them immediately and put them underneath the light and see if we could salvage them. Most of the time you can't salvage leggy plants. This is going to be marginal right here where we can salvage these or not. But he learned his lesson there on that. You have to really pay attention when you're germinating your plants. Just as soon as you see any green there, you got to get them underneath the light, whether it be natural or artificial light, or you're going to get this legginess here, which is hard to counteract. All right, I'm getting a little off subject here.
Okay, so we're going to talk about in your seed starting process, some of the tools. We're going to be covering that in the next couple of weeks. So we're going to start out with the first thing is a heat mat. And I went through our customer email and got the most asked questions. So.
Okay, we're going to shoot through them and maybe help you understand the seed germinating process, the first seed germination or seed start process that you go through.
So the first question is, why do you even need a heat mat?
Well, you don't necessarily need a heat mat. What you need on these warm season crops, not cool season crops. So if we're germinating things like cabbage, broccoli, and cauliflower, we need about 75 degrees. And speaking of that, let's just go ahead and open one up here because it has all that information on our heat mats here. So let's look at, see if I can, I'm going to try to turn it. Cabbage, we need 80 degrees. Okay, so most of the broccoli, we need 85 degrees. So most of these cool weather crops, I'm going to turn this around where it makes it. We're going to talk about more about this later, but you see on the side there it says the temperature you need for optimum germination.
So a heat mat speeds up the sprouting process.
It does.
For warm season crops, it gives it that optimal soil temperature.
Yes, so for seed start, we need supplemental heat. Now, it doesn't necessarily have to be a heat mat. I've seen people out there take old refrigerators or old freezers and make them what we call a germination chamber, and they'll put a humidifier in there, they'll put a little thermostat on it and some type of supplemental heat in there, and it works wonderful. What we need when we're germinating most, not all, celery is certainly the exception. It don't like about 60 degrees. But we're germinating most plants, they like 80 to 85 degrees to germinate at their best.
Optimal.
So if we don't have a germination chamber, and these things can be elaborate, they can be store-bought, or they can be homemade. The commercial growers use these bigger rooms where they insulate it like a cooler, and they put these heaters and fancy humidifiers in there because they want 100% humidity in there. If we don't have that, then you can use a germination mat to supplement that heat to get you what you need to do on a small level.
And you kind of covered this. Which types of seeds benefit most?
Well, your warm seasons such as your peppers and your tomatoes, things like that, watermelons are going to benefit from that the most. The next is going to be your cool season crops that's going to benefit from it. Now, lettuces, I have germinated really good lettuces at 70 degrees, although you could probably bump it up to 80 and do well also. But most of your warm season, if it's a warm season crop, it normally germinates at a higher temperature than the cool season does, although cabbage and broccoli and cauliflower, the commercial people germinate those at 80, 85 degrees.
So not all seeds need it.
Celery is the one that comes to mind that definitely does need. Lettuce would be the one I would say probably comes next that I could germinate at normal room temperature.
How does a germination mat help prevent disease?
Well, when we have cold soils where our seeds don't come up real quickly and they have a delayed germination, we have a higher chance of dampening off or disease happening
Like
within
fungal diseases?
in our soil right there, because we have to keep them wet or good moist, because that seed's got to have that to bust out of that shell. But when we have a prolonged time and it don't come up when it wants to, and it has to sit there and wait till it gets everything just right to come up, we run a larger chance of having dampening off or pythium or other fungal diseases in that soil structure there. So it definitely helps there. If we can pop them out quicker, we have the least, most likely situation for disease.
Can you use a germination mat with any type of seed container?
Theoretically, yes, but a lot of people are using bottom trays nowadays, and this is a bottom tray. I'm gonna do a little teaser here.
Okay.
This is our new seed starting trays and bottom trays that we're gonna have on the website next week. Folks, I've been working on this project for 8 months. And as of next Monday or Tuesday, we're gonna have these things on the website. And I'm stoked about it. We'll do more on this later, because this right here, and I'll show you some of the benefits next week, has got some attributes to it that I don't think nobody else has got. I think this is the perfect.
You designed that.
I did, and I think it's perfect. Maybe a little bias here. But anyway, bottom tray. A lot of people like to use bottom trays because it catches the moisture underneath there, doesn't make a mess, because we're germinating in our house, a sped bare room, or in our carport, and it makes plenty of sense. However, if we put this bottom tray on the heat mat, we're not doing anything. We're kind of defeating the purpose there. So if you're planning on using a bottom tray in the future, that's fine, but do not use it on your heat mat, because it's going to insulate that temperature and not let that temperature get
Wait till they get up.
Yes,
Till
wait
they
till you
germinate.
sprout them.
Yeah.
So you want this directly on your heat mat there. You don't want nothing to interfere with that.
So we had a call, the guy's having trouble germinating some tomatoes, and he's using solo cups.
I'm not a big fan of solo cups.
Isn't it harder the more amount of soil you have to keep that temperature optimal?
It is, and solo cups are kind of big too, so it's really hard to keep that in. You waste so much soil in a solo cup. Solo cups are bigger than what you really need. Something like this right here that you can get 25 trays in. Yes, it costs a little bit of money up front, but these things will last you for years and years and years. This is so much better of a seed start tray than anything like styrofoam cups or solo cups. This is probably going to last somebody their lifetime.
And his comment was he didn't want to have to step them up.
And nor do we. And this right
We
here,
plant 'em right
we plant them
from.
directly out of this right here.
Okay. Is there a downside to using a germination mat?
The downside is, yes, the downside is germination mats only raise temperature 10 to 15 degrees from ambient temperature. So it's really hard to use a germination mat outside in these winter cooler months because we're only going to get a bump of 10 to 15 degrees. An example of that is probably 40 degrees outside right now. So if I'm outside and I got me an outside table or unheated greenhouse, something like that, and I'm using a germination mat, I'm only going to get 50 to 55 degrees out of this germination mat, which is not enough to start my plants. So this needs to be, these germination mats need to be in a room where the ambient temperature is within 10 to 15 degrees of your ideal temperature for your germination of your plants. A great example, we just told you broccoli wants a perfect temperature of 85 degrees to germinate. If we had a room that's 70 degrees, we could put them on a germination mat and get them pretty much to the temperature we need. If we could put them in a room that's 50 degrees, we're not going to get it there. So if you're not germinating inside where you can control your ambient temperature, probably if you're doing it on the outside, you want to use something like a germination chamber. Do you one of those homemade germination chambers?
All right. How long do you leave the heat mats on? 24/7? Do you turn them on and off?
24/7. Once I start, I leave them on all the time. Now, I guess the next question is, how long do we leave the plants on the germination mat? Just as soon. Now, when I start growing my plants, I have a lot of things to start. So I got to keep things moving along because I get crazy with my planting in the springtime. So normally what I do, as soon as I see green there, and I see that I got germination to the point of around 90%, I will move these off the germination mat to somewhere else, and I will plant something else to start.
We have like two sides in the greenhouse, and one side has the germination mats and one does not. So we
Yep. We just keep things moving along there. Now, if you didn't do that and you was just going to grow a couple of trays, you can leave them on that germination mat, and it is good supplemental heat. It's not going to hurt anything. If you leave these right here on the germination mat and you have it set at around 85 degrees, you're going to be fine. It does work for a little bit of supplemental heat.
I read that if you turn them off at night when the temperatures fluctuate, it can really interrupt and stunt development.
I don't see why in the world you want to do that. Leave them on all the time.
Okay. Do you have to use a thermostat or temp controller for a heat mat?
You need to. Now, there are some cheap ones on Amazon that you can buy, some China-made ones that you can buy without a thermostat. But think about this right here. You're taking 110 out of your electrical outlet and you're running directly to a mat that has nothing on there to regulate it. So you can't regulate your heat whatsoever. You can't set your heat what you want it to be. And you run a little bit of a risk there just running 110 in there and it just running wild.
So this plugs into a thermometer?
Yes. So all of ours and all the good ones you have to use a thermostat with. The thermostat hooks into the power and you hook your
probe.
You got a probe that goes into your, right here, but your thermostat's power source right there hooks into the power, and then I just hang this close by, and then you plug your heat mats into this. That way you can regulate your temperature out of the thermostat to the heat mat.
So just remember, it's soil temperature that you're
Yes.
monitoring, not the heat mat.
That's right. The heat mat is going to try to match what you set it on, that your probe goes into your soil.
Okay. Do you need to use a humidity dome over your seeds on a heat mat?
Yes, you can. You can do it a couple of different ways. The idea here is we want to raise temperature. We do that with our heat mat, and we want to raise the humidity because ideal is 100% humidity to germinate with. To do that, we can use a dome that traps that moisture inside there to keep it high humidity. Another little trick you can do if you don't have a dome is you can take saran wrap and wrap these trays up. It does the same exact thing.
Just got to keep an eye on that.
Just got to keep an eye on there. You don't only want to do it for 28 to 48 hours and you want to take it off. Same thing with a dome. Now, dome is a little bit more forgiving because you can actually take it off, look underneath there, see if you got some sprouts or not, and put it back on there. Now, I think humidity domes are a little overused. As soon as I get germination, I don't like to use humidity dome after that because when we get plants to this stage right here where we've got leaves, 100% humidity can cause a lot of disease, and we don't want that. So I like to get rid of my humidity dome just as soon as I get through with seed germination.
Okay. Can a heat mat get too hot?
I guess so. I think the max on ours there is probably about 100, 110, and that could get a little hot. So if you're in a greenhouse or you're in somewhere where the temperature, especially if you got a dome on it and sunlight's hitting it, and it could get really hot one day, I guess it probably could, but it's unlikely.
And how do you know what temperature to set it at?
Oh, well, here we go back again. It's right here. All this information is right there on the,
Right here.
yep, these are your optimal range for each particular crop.
All right. So if you have any additional questions on heat mats, put it down in the comments. I think that was all the questions I had. Let's talk about our heat mats and how they differ.
Okay, so if you're looking for a cheap heat mat, you definitely don't want to buy ours. Go to Amazon and buy you something on Amazon. Go to the lowest price one and buy that, because there's a lot of Chinese heat mats out there that is for sale there. And they're going to maybe last you a year and you be done. Some of them don't take a thermostat. Some of them are real thin. Some of them work. Some of them don't. But if you after a bargain, that's where to go. Our thermostats were made to last for years.
Heat mats.
Excuse me, heat mats were made to last years. They're thick, and we have several different sizes. Now this is the smallest size we sell right here. Now this is going to be ideal for somebody that's just growing a few, or it will fit our new 25 cell seed stock trays. You can put 2 of these on there. We have them another size. Our next up size, you can, is what size?
The 20 by 48.
Is the next size up? Okay.
And it provides enough heat for the 162, 338.
Or you could put 2 or 3, 10, 20 trays on it. And then we got bigger sizes than that you can daisy chain together. So regardless of what size.
So we've got 100 watt, 150
I
watt.
believe this is 17, isn't it?
Yeah, I didn't list that one on there.
Yep. You did, there
Oh
it is.
yeah, 17. I put it at the
17
end.
watt.
You want to place it on a stable flat surface, not in standing water.
Oh no, you don't want, we got electricity here folks, and you don't want water, so.
You want to plug it into a 120 volt outlet,
Yep.
standard outlet.
We have some of these larger ones that daisy chain together, which the plug-ins plug into one another, so you can just kind of keep you something going on there. You can grow a lot of plants on those daisy chain ones.
You want a thermostat with these,
With all of them.
with all of them.
Speaking of water, these things here are pretty heavy duty. Now, watering on these is not going to be a problem. I mean, the water's not going to go inside there, and that's going to be wonderful there. So don't feel like you're in danger by water, something getting
No,
some water
we'll
on
take
these.
the hose and wash
Oh,
them
yeah.
off.
Now, when we're dealing with electricity, a safety factor is a huge issue. So not all of these. In fact, I think we're probably one of the only manufacturers of heat mats that has this seal of approval on there called the UL seal of approval. So these things have been tested. It's sitting right in the middle there, if everybody can see that right there, which is a testing done that deems these things safe. And that is a huge issue right there. It's called, I used to know exactly what that was called. It's called the UL listed safety thing, whatever. But anyhow, it just means they've been tested, they've been certified to be safe, because we don't want to put anything, electricity and water and all that kind of stuff in our house, our bedroom, or carport that's not safe. So that's a
And
huge
you're saying
issue
you
right
don't
there.
want to use it on the floor?
Don't want to use it on the floor, right? Have it up on a rack. A baker's rack is fine. We use them on a baker's rack all the time. So
And don't wrap it or try to insulate it to make it warmer.
let it do its thing.
And so we have the ones that can be daisy chained together.
Yep.
So if you think you want to start off with one and add some
Some
later,
of these things are big. These are
Yeah.
one right here. It's got the daisy chain on there. Look there.
so
So there's
you,
the plug-in right there that you daisy chain to kind of
you can order the master mat and then you can order the daisy chain
And
ones.
then it's got this plug-in right here that you plug them in together. These things are really well made. And I honestly think when you get through germinating, get through using them in the springtime, move them inside, wash them off. That's what we do. I think these things can last 10, 20 years easy. And show it one more time. I'm gonna show an empty one because I'm really pumped about this right here. And next week we're gonna do a show on these right here because we're gonna be talking about seed starting. But folks, this right here is the 162 cell tray that we sell, the big one, that has been cut down to a 25 cell tray for people that want to do smaller gardening. We realize the fact that not everybody can utilize a big 162 cell tray, so we brought this one right here out. And what we did a little different is it has a good bottom watering tray, and it's got a secret to this right here to make sure it work really good. I'm not going to tell anybody until next week. But I'm pumped about this right here. I think that is the perfect seed starting tray.
You think you can keep quiet till next week?
I hope so. I hope so.
It's not you that can't keep a secret.
As I say, I can keep a secret. It's all those people I tell that can't.
All right, garden spotlight.
Yep.
Garden spotlight.
Garden spotlight. I'm getting all messed up. You know why?
Why?
It's overalls.
Oh,
Overall week. We all
overall week.
wearing the overalls.
We both got a haircut.
We got a haircut and wearing the overalls. We all spiffy whiffy. Now, tell us about this right here.
So this is Jim Billingsley.
Old Jim's our friend of ours.
From Loganville, Georgia, Zone 8. He planted plugs of cabbage, collards, broccoli, all from Hoss. They did excellent. He's already harvested the broccoli. They planted Hoss carrots, lettuce seeds that's doing great too, and we have strawberries and Brussel sprouts.
Jim, I'm a huge fan of your garden layout there. I love the rocks there for the walkways. I'm tempted to do me something similar to this. It's simply a display garden. I like that. I like that a lot.
So we've got carrots too. We've been eating on our carrots.
Yeah,
I meant to bring
speaking
some
of
today.
carrots, we just got a new shipment in of seed tape. We've been out of stock on some of the purple, excuse me, the rainbow
Rainbow
carrot.
carrot.
We actually got another regular orange carrot in seed
Oh.
tape this year. We need to talk about that probably next week also. But we just got a new shipment of seed tape in. We added a couple of varieties there. So you're going to be seeing a lot of new things on our website in the next couple of weeks. We've also got the new Roselle in stock.
It's alive.
It's live and on stock. The new Saint kits that you've heard us rave about, we got it in stock on our website. And 50 seed variation, 25 seed variation. So check that out because I can almost, we got around 20 pounds of it, but we'll probably sell out of it this year.
All right. The old goat.
Old goat, folks. The old goat is on the set somewhere. It moves around, but if you find the old goat, put it in the comments below, and we'll have a drawing next week for this week's winner. Last week's winner is, whoa, Beth, I dropped you there. Beth Herden. Herden.
Herten.
Beth, I do
Herten.
apologize if I messed
Herten,
up
I
your
think.
last name. Beth, send us your shipping information to.
Support@growhouse.com.
Yes, Beth, and you will be the lucky recipient of these Get Dirty socks. Look at there. Snazzy, snazzy, snazzy.
So, any shipping updates?
Oh, potatoes. We hope
Well-
to have potatoes in. I'm working on getting a truck to pick up. Do you know how hard it is to get a truck to pick up a load of seed potatoes in Minnesota right now, this time of the year? It's tough.
Yes.
So I'm working on that right now. I got a couple people, couple trucks interested, but our hope is to have potatoes in next week and start shipping seed potatoes next week is our hope. The weather up in Minnesota is not the best in the world. It's hard to get a truck driver convinced to get up there and pick it up.
And a lot of, just in shipping in general, we're getting a lot of messages, a lot of
Delays.
calls, delays due to the weather. the
Now,
last week.
USPS is not the best in good weather, but you give them some bad weather and we sure enough get some delays. So be patient with them. It is what's happening right now in the world. Major delays out there. They can't deliver. Now, UPS, not as bad. They do have some delays, but it seems to be more USPS, which is pretty much the norm there.
Got a lot of new seeds on our site.
A lot of new seeds. We got a new seed tab. We got new seeds, new supplies. We got new bundles. Everybody's getting started gardening. Everybody's wanting to jump out the gate and get it done too soon. I urge you to use caution, do some research, and plant when you should. I plant my peppers February the 10th. I plant my tomatoes February the 15th. I plant my watermelons after that. That's my schedule, and I stick with it every year, and it's been pretty successful. All right, folks, thank you for joining us. Now it's time for you to get outside and get those hands dirty.